G'day, I'm Cameron, this is Rob, and this is our vacation period 4,000 point Orcs versus Kingdoms of Men. I'll give you a quick run through of the list. We're going to be playing push, so in the push scenario, we've got loot. You score points for being in possession of loot tokens, and you score more points for them if you can get them into your opponent's half. So I'll take you through the running tour of my Orcs. We've got a unit of Gore Riders, we've got a Crudger on Gore, we've got a God Speaker on a Gore, we've got a unit of Axe, we've got a horde of Great Axe, we've got 2 regiments of Skulks, one of them is carrying my loot token, we have a War Drum, another Crudger on Gore. Each of the Crudgers has an Orcish skull pole. We have a Legion of Axe with the second token, a unit of Orclings. Coming right over to the far right, we have a Crudger on a Winged Slasher, a Chariot Legion, a Fight Wagon Legion. They've also got the Brew of Haste, so they're speed 8. Another God Speaker on Gore, Crudger on Gore, and here we have the Mad Boys. We have War Drum, Whip, the Outcast, 3 regiments of Morax, Whip's Playmates, a Crudger with the Bloody Banner, and the big boy Giant. Over to you, Rob. Tell us what Kings of the Men are bringing to the table.
All right, let's start over on my right flank. So we've got a wizard here with lightning bolt and heal. Next to him, mounted scouts. So a regiment of mounted scouts. They've got black powder weapons. Next to that is an Empire steam tank who's playing today as the Mammoth. Sitting behind them, we've got a regiment of knights who have the Mace of Crushing, Empire General on a winged beast carrying the Blade of the Beast Slayer. We've got a hero on a Pegasus who's got the Diadem of Dragonkind. Coming over along the fence line here, we've got some Empire siege artillery that's playing today as Ballista. We've got a horde of crossbowmen who have black powder weapons. We've got a cannon moving across here. We've got a horde of pikemen who have the healing brew, and also in Indomitable Will, this unit of Foot Guard have also got Indomitable Will, and they've got the Brew of Strength, and behind them is the Army Standard Bearer who's got the Shroud of the Saint. And finally in that part of the line we've got some pole arms, and they've got the Brew of Sharpness, a horde of those. In the bushes here we've got another Ballista and a cannon, and on my left flank we have a horde of knights with Sir Jesse's Boots of Striding. In front of them we've got what I'm calling chariots today. Next to them here we've got a giant, and in the water we've got another regiment of knights. On the bridge here we've got another Ballista and a cannon, and then coming back just to the centre of my line, last 3 units we've got there 2 units of militia, and they are flanking in the centre there a unit of flagellants. So that's my army, so good luck to the men.
Alright, I'll get out of here and I'll give you 5 minutes for Rob to talk through his grand plan for at least the first turn.
All right, so let's have a look at the battle plan as far as I can see it, and if things go according to plan. So this army doesn't really have any shooting, so I really want to maximise the amount of time I have with shooting to try and soften up the targets coming at me. And if you see the setup here, what we can see is probably going to come at me in two waves. So we've got this first wave of units with wild charge and the giant coming down the centre, and then on this flank we can see we've got the fight wagons and also the chariots and the winged crudger coming at me on this flank. So I really want to try and soften those and, if possible, take out with the shooting here, perhaps 2 rounds of shooting. I've got 2 cannons and 2 ballista in these 2 places here, so I'd really like to shoot them for at least 2 turns if I can. In addition, I really want to be able to move this giant and these knights and potentially even the chariots up here onto the flank and push this knight unit just slightly forward so that he has to choose his targets and hopefully offers me a flank that I can charge into. In the centre, what we can see is I've got loot markers in these 2 horde units here, the foot guard and the spears, and so or the pikes, sorry, and really want to hold my ground there as much as possible and make him come towards me. The maximum move of those foot troops on the hill there with wild charges, they can move 10 inches a turn if they're moving at the double, and that would give them probably 2 turns before they got to me, and maybe a bit more. So I'm really not sure what to do with these. They're really just there to block them and hold them up. I'm really hoping to kind of just break up his line a little bit so that he can't come at me in one wave, and try and soften them with the shooting that we've got on this side. So we've got in this sort of angled section against the wall there, we've got a cannon and a ballista and a horde of handgunners that really try and soften that middle unit a bit so that by the time it gets to me, it's weakened. This flank is a little bit trickier, but ideally, again, what I want to do using this hammer and anvil tactic is swing this flank around. So move forward with the Pistoliers unit, these mounted sergeants, and try and get some cover up here on the flank using this piece of terrain over here, and shoot into the giant and force the giant to leave that battle line and come towards me or continue forward, which means I've got a flank charge on him. I've got this unit of knights here that'll try and cover those units there from his Gaul riders and try and just basically hold him off there. And then these 3, the mammoth and the general on the winged beast, and also the Pegasus mounted captain, will probably fly over towards the flank as well. I wouldn't mind trying to get in to the flank or even into the rear of that first wave if I can, but I'll move them down a little closer, use the building as cover, and force potentially that line to break up a little bit on the side there as well. So that's my plan. I hope to take care of the first wave, and if I do that well enough with my shooting and positioning on the flanks, then I've got a really strong centre that then I can move forward and take care of his second wave.
Alright, so you've heard a good plan. Here's the winning plan. This is how it's going to work. We've divided these orcs up into 3 battle groups. First of all, I've got the go and die battle group. So a lot of these guys have wild charge. We're going to try and see if we can break down the centre as much as possible. I really don't care if they fall over. They're just going to try and see if we can break up this line a little bit. I'm going to try and hold with my anvil here in the middle with this battle group here. I may initially not push them up all in a hurry, but I do want to make sure that I'm in reach of this at the other side of the board. by the later part of the game. I feel with this battle group over here on my right flank that I'm a little bit outmatched by the knights on the other side. However, that's their job. They're going to go down and see if we can break apart some of these knights to keep them out of our flank, playing a bit of a refused flank on this side. Hopefully I'm going to be able to get this Crudger perhaps around the back to either support these two chariot legions of the fight wagons legion, but particularly focused on taking out the artillery, given that I've got no artillery. I think it's going to be important to get into that early on in the game. Over here on the left flank, it's a little bit of wait and see again, a bit of a refuse flank tactic. Hopefully I can hold up some of these fires. I'm a bit outmaneuvered on this side, so at least if I can keep them out of the way to allow me to make a bit of a hole in the centre with the Orcs, I've basically got to push them up. I've got to get them into combat. I don't have any shooting as such. My wizards are really playing a supporting role, hopefully with a heal, can actually knock off some of those wounds to keep them moving across the table. It'll be interesting to see where this left flank gets to in about turn 2, as whether I'm going to start to push down this side or whether I'm just going to continue to play that refuse flank. Done the Orky thing, we've just pushed up the green board. So advanced up the centre, advanced the rear group up the middle here. We've made a little bit of an advance on the left, being a bit careful not to be within charge range, and the same on this right flank, playing some cat and mouse here as well, sitting just outside of charge range. For my shooting phase, the one thing Orcs are able to do, Whip has used his Veil of Shadows to make an aura here of -1 hit.
Alright, so end of turn 1. Usually there's a bit more carnage than we've got. All the players are still on the board at the moment. Starting on the left flank, just got squeezed for room there and really struggled to get my units out of there. So 2 flyers have gone over the building and threatening the flank there. Had a shot but only caused 1 wound on the Gore Riders there, so that's a bit of a Mexican standoff at the moment. Mammoth is sort of stuck in there behind. Shooting went pretty well, stripped 11 wounds off the giant there. In the middle, no real action there, no movement. On this flank, just a little bit of manoeuvring, but again it was shooting out of these 2 places with both cannons and the ballista targeting the fight wagons and caused, was it 10 wounds there, Cam?
Yep.
Yep, so 10 wounds out of 20 wounds on that one. So yeah, interesting. At the moment the chariots here are sitting just beyond the charge range, but just within their charge range. So interested to see what Cameron does on this flank, because he's got a bit of offensive power coming towards me at the moment, so we'll see what happens in turn 2.
Alright, we're at the end of the Orcs turn 2. So the stalemate down on my left flank here. The Orcs have gone and hid. Very orky, they've gone and hid behind, just behind the blocking terrain here, looking to minimise the double charge that the cabin's set up here. The Crudger's very keen to get into the fray. He's just leading, doing what Crudger should do, leading out front. The Giant was a little confused and blundered over into the fence, but that's okay. I'm sure he'll be able to cope with it this turn. we'll continue to push up the centre. The wild charge trade-off between the Berserkers and the Morax here will be interesting in the next turn. We'll see what will happen there, and then the rears just continue to push up a little bit. The Shamans across the board have done their best to heal wounds where possible. So we've had the Shaman over here take a couple of wounds off the Giant, and we've had the Shaman, the God Speaker, over here as well, do the same thing for the Fire Wagons. So they're just in it. Over on this side, the Crudger is trying to break the stalemate. So he's gone headlong in. He's not in combat. He's just sitting, swearing and cursing at the chariots in front of him and egging them on to come and fight. There was some confusion about the rules for flyers over here about whether they were allowed to land in difficult terrain. So we've just come to a gentleman's agreement about how that's going to work, and we've moved the flyer. He's actually landed here, but given that it's such a big model, we didn't want him to fall off the table. So he's currently looking off to the side there. So I think we're just about getting to that point where we might start to see a bit of melee in this turn. We had our first melee combat actually between a Crudger and the General. So the Crudger managed to cause a couple of wounds on that flying beast there. So we'll see if he's going to retaliate in Rob's turn.
All right, end of turn 2. So we've seen a fair bit of action this turn. So starting on my right flank, we had a bit of a battle between the Giant and my General and Knights, and even though the Knights were hindered, unfortunately they did enough to take out the Giant, because my General did bugger all, apart from roll ones. So, but glad to see the back of the Giant. The Knights have turned around to face the rest of that flank, and the General also turned around. Bit of shooting on there, but not much else to report. In the centre here, big news was the Fanatics took out a unit of his Morax, and most importantly took the loot marker, and were able to turn around, so smashed them in one turn, which was terrific. The militia lived up to their name, and they only caused 4 wounds, despite having 24 attacks on Orclings, so it didn't exactly cover themselves in glory. The hero on Pegasus caused 3 wounds on the Orc hero. What's his name?
Whip the outcast.
On Whip, but he managed that fine. Over here, you'll notice a big gap where the fight wagons were. Got taken out by shooting. Frustratingly, devastated the Crudger here, but I rolled double ones to keep him in the game, so I was feeling very generous around that, despite him being smashed by both the Giant and the Chariots, which pinned me in place there, which is a bit of a pest. Over here, Knights were hindered charging into the Chariots, managed to cause 4 wounds, so we'll see what happens here next turn. So that's the end of turn 1, still plenty of action left in this game.
I think it's actually turn...
End of turn 2, sorry, yeah.
At the first half of turn 3, it's now starting to get a little bit messy. Without the fight wagons over here, the Chariots have jumped in against the Knights. They're on Snake Eyes after doing 8 wounds, which I don't think we'll put a wounds counter on there yet, have we? So here we go. 8 wounds, but it's not looking that great over here. The devastated Crudger is hanging on. He's going to have one more go. Fortunately, the Snotwings are coming to the rescue, so I think that should be enough to hold this flank. War Machines, I think, are in trouble down here. The Crudger is fast approaching. Over in the centre, there's a lot going on the hill. After that fantastic effort by the Berserkers to take out that unit of Morax, the remaining Morax and Whip's playmates have managed to see off the Expendables. I guess that was bound to happen, so now we'll see what will happen as the skirmish continues on the hill, whether the Berserkers can keep up their fine form. In the meantime, the Legion is fast approaching here, and I think all the characters have jumped in for a big hero fight right in the centre there. But at the moment, key thing is that the Berserkers are still holding the wound marker there, so still in possession of that, of the contested marker. Over on this side, still a bit of a Mexican standoff. The Fearless Mammoth, that was handy, not able to punch through there, so there's going to be a bit going on this turn. We've got some boxed in units with mighty characters, but we also have some counter charge options here as well, and the Wiz still hanging around in the background. So I think the second half of turn 3 is going to be quite decisive. Let's see where it goes.
All right, into turn 3, so let's survey the carnage. So if we start over here, grinding a bit here, so the knights are not really doing much damage to the chariots, and the chariots are holding on, but they've got a fair bit to deal with happening soon. We've got all the guns on this side of the board, so 2 ballistas, 2 cannons turned to face the Crudger and a Wing Slasher. Finally defeated the Crudger on a gore here, and the chariots have turned to face and provide a little bit of support, even if it's moral, to the cannons. We've finally got the big knight unit clear, and the captain has destroyed the Orc Magician. In the centre of the board, the melee troops have finally woken up and made a sudden surge forward, destroyed the unit that was sitting here, which was the Orcs unit, through shooting, and best players of the game on the Kingdoms of Men side, the Fanatics smashed through the Orclings. In the centre here, a bit of a grind with all the characters, nothing major happening here. Over here we've had a Crudger cause some problems and wavering. The ballista, the handgunners have been going actually pretty well, picking off targets. And here on the right flank, Gore Rider unit was dispatched by the Mammoth, and mainly by the charge of the mounted scouts into its flank. A bit of a stalemate between the Knights and the Crudger is doing a great job holding them at bay. So flank still contested over here, although I think I've probably got more units. In the centre, he's got lots of units marching towards me, so let's see whose strategy will prevail. On my left flank, the Giant and the Captain charged the chariot that had been causing problems over there and finally finished it off.
It's all finished on this side?
Yeah. The Wing Slasher took out the ballista here and then took a round of shooting, which bounced off him. He's attacked the chariots here, but hasn't really done enough wounds to cause them too many issues. And we've got the Orclings have moved forward. My whole line's moved forward, which enabled Cameron to charge into this unit of pikes here.
With the buff, after a buff from a magic item.
Yeah, so used a wild charge, caused 10 wounds, but not enough, unfortunately. You can see all the characters are cleared out there, so their fight kind of resulted in a bit of a draw. They're nearly all dead there. And on this flank, we can see that the Axe are gone, and so is the Mammoth, and also so is a Knight unit. So probably the Orcs have had the better of that flank over there. I've probably had the better on the other flank and in the middle.
It's about to all happen.
Yeah, still to be determined. So game definitely in the balance.
Alright, we've just finished the last half of turn 5 and it got super scrappy in here. Probably the men here were a little bit surprised and maybe caught at the jump because they did nowhere near as much damage as we thought they would do. For starters, the mighty Orc Crudger in here is actually holding up. This is a unit, is this a shield wall unit?
Foot guard.
The foot guard unit, so it's holding up the foot guard unit. He's actually wavered and stuck in there now. All up, the other units did I think a total of 18 wounds on this Orc Legion, so we're now It's going to be a bit grindy in here. We're still grinding over here on my right flank, the Crudger and the Chariots just trading tit for tat over here. The Giants snuck up on the back of the Orclings, and I think they're actually wavered from a cannon that's hit them from over in the last couple of cannon hit them from over in the woods there. The Knights made a big move in the centre. I think this is where the big news of turn 5. They've used Sir Jesse's burst of striding, they've come up through the difficult terrain, and they've certainly got their eye on the prize here, which of course if they land, that's 2 points for the Kings and Men. So I think we're coming to crunch time now. The other little bit of sneaky action we missed is McCrudger's got his way through here and taken out one of the pieces of artillery and has now jumped into the side of this shooting unit here, which of course is now disrupted, disordered.
Yep.
All right, we are still scrapping right in the middle of the board here. In that turn, we had the unit of Skulks charged into the flank of the mounted sergeants here. I think they did 4 wounds. Probably the champion unit of the game really has been these Berserkers. They finally did what they're asked to do and died at the hands of Skulks and the Great Axe. And the big Orc Legion is still just grinding against those pikes, which are proving to be incredibly difficult. Contentious moment of the turn was these Skulks here, after taunting and jeering and encouraging the Knights to come through the woods, have just snuck outside of the charge arc with a sneaky charge against the Berserkers. The Crudger has just left the combat and flown out of the charge line of the Giants. And the Chariots, we'll see if he can survive 1, 2, 3, 4 war machines at the second half of this turn.
So start on my left flank. Finally cleared out the Crudger on a wing slasher, so that did what it meant to do. Held up quite a few points over here, so probably earned its points back. In the middle, finally managed to get those Knights across the table and into combat. And the hammer and anvil worked perfectly in the end. So the big infantry units, particularly being able to get into the flank with the foot guard, saw off the Axe Legion, and the Knights charging into the Great Axe with the captain were able to finish them off. Bit of a stalemate over here on this flank, and cleared pretty much everything out over on the right flank. So in the end, I think the score was 2 points for this loot marker, 2 points for that unit in my half, and 1 point for that unit there. So 5 points.
5 zip.
Markers. So that's it. That's the end of.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay.
Thanks for the game.
No worries. Great game. In the balance right up to the end.